Hey, Ryan here, and I'm here with a very special episode. I know a lot of you are out there waiting for the special videos from Ausfolk, Viking Martial Arts, More Arms and Armor, and Oak Shot. Thank you all for sending me up there. I'd like to thank everybody who helped me at Funly. But today I'm setting up a special video for October. A lot of you know what October 25th is. It's St. Crispin's Day. But also 1415 was the Battle of Agincourt on October 25th. I've got bows here by Archeybowman. I have my new stronger longbow. This is an all hickory self bow, as you can tell, and it's 110 at 28, 130 at 32. Now I know this bow is weak compared to the test done at Tom's workshop. He had experts on the ARMOUR, a Boyer or Fletcher, and they made arrows, and an actual bowman that could shoot 160, as this up to a 200-pound bow, but he said he would get tired after about 6 shots on the 200. Well, unfortunately, I'm not as skilled as him. I'm not going to be shooting a 160-pound bow today, but this is sort of a reply to Arrows versus Armor, where they tested the actual breastplate, just like we did. One of my videos that y'all made really popular, where I did the English Longbow or Warbow versus plate and Maille. A lot of you have probably seen the video. We tested the breastplate, but if you notice, we didn't test the front of the breastplate. I'm testing it in my backyard. I don't want to break arrows and have them lodge in other things or fly over fences with high-powered bows. And I'm also shooting a much shorter distance. So the shorter range, as you saw in his video, the arrow speed decreases as you go longer range. So at shorter range, you're going to have a maximum velocity that bow can put out. So me shooting at about 10 yards over what they shot, or actually a little less, maybe about 5 yards, is going to give us a lot more power and accuracy for me to get direct on hits, because my skill's not as great at longer range. Of course, I don't use these regularly, longbows, as I should. I guess every Sunday like they would have back in the day. But we tested the back of the breastplate, and when we tested it, we got a piercing. But if you look at this this breastplate where we got piercings, I actually shot a few more shots even though it was raining and I didn't want the bow out in it. They never got included in the original video. I'm hoping to show a couple of those here. I was with at 32 inches, 105-pound draw bow, and at 28, I believe it was 85. It's right over here. And we still got some piercing, but this breastplate's not as thick. Theirs is 2 millimeters thick in the middle. This is probably 1.5 millimeters thick in the center of the middle of this breastplate. So I would say if we had the thickness they had unhardened, and this is slightly, I wouldn't even say it's really hardened. It was just, he tried to quench harden it slightly. It's not really, and then anneal it. So it's basically unhardened in theory. Breastplate made out of steel. So it's basically what they tested. We got the same results. We've tested before and had arrows explode on the same breastplate with a lower pound bow and different arrows. So I would say all in all, our channel's been getting the same results, and I commend them in doing it properly for Agincourt. And we're doing this in honor of St. Crispin's Day in Agincourt, and we're going to do this today without the breastplate. The reason we're not testing armor at this point, unless we were doing really thin armor like on the arms and legs that they possibly could have worn, which would be harder because there'd be more glances, just like they brought up. The main focus would be our Maille, and that's the only thing about the video I wanted to make a reply about. They didn't focus on how deep that arrow went through the Maille. It didn't look like it went much deeper than my bow that I tested in the last video. It's a Botkin style arrow, which broke a rivet. Today I would like to try a leaf-shaped arrow, which the Vikings swore by, and we have arrows here from my good friend Daniel Pearson, and these are based on Hedeby, or Hedeby, some people would say, but it's Hedeby arrows, and they are made of cedar, and they're quite heavy. These are at least 70 grams to 80 grams. I mean, these are up there, even though they're a little smaller than the full half-inch at the beginning of the other video. These are consistent taper. I'd say they're at least 3/8 inch shafts, and they are more than strong enough. I've used them in both bows to hold up to the force that I'll be shooting today. We have good heads. These are not case hardened either. They're about like the ones they tested that were not case hardened. They may be slightly hardened on the tips. I'm not sure. I don't think that they're case hardened in the same way. They're softer steel. So we've got our Maille here. This is 10 millimeter rings. It's all flat, which is different than the other video where we had the riveted rings that were round stock and riveted, and then flat solid stamped rings. These are solid stamped rings and riveted rings. We're going to have it on our hog, and this is my big disclaimer today. We're going to be doing it forged in fire style. So this is a young wild boar from Texas, or what we call a wild pig or a wild hog. They were never a domesticated animal and went feral. They've always been here, and they are basically boar. You can tell by looking at it. We eat them. They're a pest. If anybody's watching from YouTube out there, I just want to give a good disclaimer to let you know they do this on Forged in Fire every week. Many people consider it a family show. You have no problem showing this on YouTube, this type of testing, and we will be testing with long swords too on the same hog after we get done doing this. And it will be eaten when it's all over with, and they are considered a pest here. You don't even need a hunting license to hunt these and kill them on your property because they're so overpopulated. So if you have an aversion to seeing flesh cut or something like you would see on Forged in Fire, please tune out now. If you don't like eating meat or think that eating meat or killing animals is bad and this may offend you, please leave now. But we're using this because this is a better medium. It has bones in it, so we have our actual rib bones, our rib cage, and flesh. It does have hide on it with hair that is much tougher than human skin or hide, you know, like we would have. So today we're going to have 8 layers of tightly woven linen. This is really a linen sackcloth, but it's tightly woven. And we have 8 layers of that. It was sent by a good friend of mine, Andrea Snoll. We've used it many a times, and we already know the ability it has to stop arrows and so forth with lower pound bows. And we are using our Maille here from Medieval Shop. Like I said, it is a Aventail, but it fits this hog perfectly, and I don't know any other way to get one on here. So we're focusing on voiders, if people had voiders under their Maille. But apparently at Agincourt, they said they would have had an Accaton, an arming jack, and Maille. So that's what we have on our hog. So I think this will be a good test because we're focusing on the idea if you were to get a lucky shot under an armpit, in a gap, a niche, whatever you want to call it, chink in the armor, whatever you want to call it, under the arm, any place that you would hit where there'd just be Maille, like maybe in the waistband, if they didn't have the actual folds at the bottom, and like we do on this breastplate. But that's the whole thought here. If you get a lucky hit on the actual Maille with just the arming jack, how effective will it be? And today we're going to try using the more powerful bow. I don't know if I will get a full 32-inch draw, and I really doubt it. But definitely whatever I can muster to get to the max draw is going to probably be more powerful than my 105-pound bow. But today we're going to use our different bodkins, our different arrowheads. We're going to start off with that. And then later we will go to long swords. I'm going to start off now with a basically a leaf-shaped arrowhead. It's socketed. During the Viking Age, a lot of these would be tanged. These are head-of-view arrows, but the whole idea here is they have the right gram weight of many arrows that were found on the Mary Rose. They're splined or spined to hold up to the actual bow weights that we're using today. They hold up well, and they're very good arrows. I'm going to go ahead and shoot this one, and it's supposedly said that the Vikings swore by lozenge or leaf-shaped arrowheads that were real small like this against Maille, that they were able to pierce it. So also many of the bodkins that you see are more of a lozenge shape than these true spike-like bodkins that a lot of people show you. And I believe those were better for cutting into plate if they're made properly. So let's go ahead and see what happens, and I'm going to go ahead and shoot this into the Maille and see if this can pierce it with this bow. Like I said, this is about a 85. Normally would be at 85 at 28 and 105 at 32. But I'm going to start off with this bow before we work up to the more powerful bow of 130. And it was unable to pierce the Maille over actual flesh. Well, last time when we released with an actual bodkin point, we were able to pierce it. It was able to break a rivet. This time there's no rivet broken, and it didn't cut through, it bounced off. We'll examine the Maille here a second. I'm seeing no damage to the actual Maille armor. We will feel the ribs. When we examine it, we'll feel the ribs and see if there's any damage to the ribs. So the good thing on this, we'll actually see if anything broke. I'm going to use our famous Shart bodkin. As you noticed in the other video, was actually able to put a small hole in the breastplate. It wasn't able to pierce it deep enough, even if it was directly over the body to cause a serious wound. I mean, if it was some area where the plate was up against the body and had real thin actin under it and it punctured like that, it might prick into your flesh enough and thump you hard enough that, yeah, it would be very painful, but I don't think you would kill your warrior underneath it. So that's one thing a lot of people do. They'll shoot an arrow. I've even seen a Mike Lode's video where he shot an arrow into a breastplate point blank to mimic a higher pound bow. And they use some kind of air cannon, I believe, and they only got a piercing into the plate. But the plate's normally out away from the body. And I noticed in that video, arrows versus armor, or arrows against armor by Todd's Workshop, that ballistics gel looked like it was right up against the breastplate, in the shape of the breastplate. And I'm sorry, but the human body, I guess unless you were on some kind of diet where you just gained a lot of weight and the thing barely fit you, your body would be up under the mail. Most of these knights are really muscular, they were in good shape, and the breastplate was bulbed out away from the body where it was more vulnerable in the gut area, and it was much thicker in the ridge in the center of the breastplate. That's one thing that a lot of people get wrong. The breastplate's all the same gauge, and this one's approximately all the same gauge, the one we used earlier in the other videos. But we're working on mail right now. So far it's done really well. We're going to use that short bodkin and see if we can get a hole into our hog. So let's go ahead and see what happens. I'll get maximum draw here. I've been doing pretty good today with that. I've been getting pretty good draws all the way back. Ooh, that's the only one I've seen that's somewhat stuck for a second, but it bounced out. And a lot of this I'm attributing to, we don't have it over ballistics gel like in the other video. Plus I may not have this in tight enough on a hog, and I may be hitting a little too far over. But I couldn't see on that one. We might actually release it one more time and I might pull this in, I'm thinking. We finally got one to penetrate. Let's go ahead and check this out. I figured I was hitting a little farther over, a little too high up, so we weren't hitting anything really solid enough, in my opinion. I don't think we're hitting anything solid enough to give enough resistance. We have wounded our hog. Finally, once and for all, we wounded it. It's over some ribs. I believe we wounded our hog. There's no guarantee here. The best way to undress the hog, but we'll go ahead and see if I can get this out. We lost our socket on it. It is in this Maille solid. I don't know the best way to get to our area. I don't think the hog's wounded that badly. Do you see a bad wound here?
You barely
wounded the hog. So let's check out our actual Maille here.
You're going to have fun trying to get that out of the Maille.
Where is the Maille in the hull? That's what I've lost now.
Oh, the head finally came out.
Oh, the head just fell out. So basically 8 layers of tightly woven linen, and it's not very thick at all. It's very thin. What we have under it, about like an army Atkinson, was able to pierce cloth, but it wasn't able to pierce the actual hog flesh. And upon looking now, I think we've been hitting a little higher up than I expected, but there are ribs in this area and nothing's broken. But of course this is hollow and it's a little lighter than a person and it's free hanging. So this could be causing some differences than you would have actually hitting a person, but I do think that the Maille would be doing its job. We're going to go up to a higher pound bow and possibly a needle point in the next one. Oh, let's see. We do have a broken ring. I found it. I found it.
There was a damaged ring that I saw.
It did bust a ring. Here we go. That's got to be where it hit. Here it is. We lost a ring.
The cloth may have moved when you or when it fell off.
That's what I think happened. I didn't notice that. I thought it was where it was bunched up, but we lost one of our solid rings. So that means this bow has enough force to break the rings in the Maille, but the energy it took to actually break that ring and to poke into the cloth just barely didn't really wound our hog. If it was wounded, it was just a mild wound. Not sure about the thump, but I guarantee you it didn't pierce through him.
Okay.
We are now going to use the famed needle bodkin that we used in the other video that was able to actually pierce deeply into our ballistics gel through the Maille armor and the lighter Akaton, or the 8 layers we used last time. I think it was 8 or 10 layers last time that we put under the actual mail. Now, if it was standalone gambeson, you might have up to 30 layers of tightly woven linen, some padding mixed in, an outer layer of garment, maybe even a leather or a linen or something that's a finer linen on the outside. But in our case, we have our 8 layers of coarse linen with the hide, and the hair should be more than adequate. Plus, I've already brought up the point, this has a little more give to it because there's no intestines or anything, and I'm hitting ribs and body that can kind of give a little bit more than a person. But that's plausible with a person too, depending on where you hit what would actually take place. We're going to try this and see if we can get a deeper penetration. I'm thinking, speaking of Matt Easton there, likes his penetration, I'm thinking, in your honor there, I think we'll actually get it. Let's see what happens. I'm going to go ahead and give this a full draw. Remember, this is the weaker bow. We are going to try to step it up and use the heavier bow if I can get a long enough draw on it. Ooh, one heck of a shot there. Let's see what took place here. Our mail came off. Our penetration went through our mail, and it looks as if we have 1 inch. The mail itself is unbroken. I can show a close-up of this. Caddy is not with me, but our mail is unbroken, but we have a 1 inch penetration. I'm not seeing anything on the hog. It would be really difficult because he can't bleed to tell, but I will go back and examine the hog, but it looks like it's just wedged in here. This time when the ring did not break. Last time we broke a ring when we hit, and it was over ballistics gel, which is much more solid and doesn't give as much. This, like I said, the body's giving quite a bit. 1 inch, I'd say approximately, maybe a little less, maybe 3/4 of an inch penetration. But it's wedged in, meaning it was actually technically stopped, and you got your layers of cloth. This would be a wound. We're going to go ahead and try that needle bodkin again. I'm going to try lower over the rib cage. Hopefully I can hit that right on, and see if we get a penetration into the meat at all. I mean, that's 3/4 of an inch for that kind of punch. I would think that would cause some injury at least. Yow! Finally. I think hitting over the belly was just a little weak. This is a penetration. Oh, they got to see this.
I'm getting it. Technical issues with two of our cameras. So unfortunately, I'm working on them currently.
Now, there was no mail on the back side and no cloth. And we hit over cloth here, but I don't think we hit over as many layers of cloth. So technically we only hit over 4 layers of cloth. We hit over, so the cloth has a lot to do with it. We hit, see if we hit over ribs or what we hit over. I think we just hit over flesh. No, this is just flesh. But it looks like we came through ribs on the back side. If you look here, that is through the rib area. But that would have been a kill. So that shows that with less cloth, and depending on how it hits and where it hits, it was able to make it through here. Let's see what's the best way to pull this out so they can see it. If I can get this through. The actual socket itself doesn't want to come through. Okay, there we go, got it out. We want to see what it went through here. Like I said, just skin here. Basically, that is just skin. There was no bone, no hair, so that's probably the weakest part of the entire hog. And the hole went through and through ribs on the back.
Went through his armpit.
Correct. There you go. Pretty much, I guess, what you'd have to worry about at engine court. But there's a lot less cloth here than you would expect, and it broke a riveted ring. Let's see if it was the rivet that failed. I'm honestly thinking that's what took place. Remember how we had that happen in the other video? And we've had a lot of rings hold up. That's what you've got to look at. How many times have the rings held in this video? Mm-hmm. So it means that mail protects you, but it's not a guarantee. It's a broken rivet, clearly. Get a close-up of this. That is a broken rivet. Could have been a fouled rivet point. When you start trying to do this much mail, I don't care what kind of mail monger you are, unless you're doing heavier gauge mail and just really taking your time, and I'm sure they paid extra money for stuff like that back in the day. If you were like a noble or a royal or something. So when you look at that, then yeah, I don't know, I'm gonna have to unbend this ring to get this out. And yes, I can repair the mail, so fear not, but I don't want to leave our arrow in here. But I think it just goes to show part of it was locations I'm hitting change, so there's variables. And if this rivet had not failed, I don't think that he would have been wounded as badly, but that would have been his life right there. I'm pretty sure if you were wearing it, even with extra cloth, I think it would go fairly deep.
I think he had his life flashed before his eyes, probably.
Yeah, I'm sure he did.
Alive.
If he was alive, yeah. That would have gotten him. I'll just remove this because there's no point in leaving it in there if anybody wants to see what it looked like. It's a failed rivet. And yes, these are flat, or the type of rivets they are, they're like wedge rivets. So the wedge rivet was popped out and it just came apart. If it was have to cut the ring, I think it would have absorbed enough force to protect the hog, and it would have only done what we saw earlier where it went through about 3/4 of an inch.
Maybe a little more.
True. Now let's crank it up a bit, I'd say. This is our leaf-shaped arrowhead again with a sharp edge, and a lot like the bokkens they tested in Arrow versus Armour medieval myth busting, and when they did their idea of Agincourt. And what I'm going to do is test it with a more powerful bow. This bow is one by Archeybowman. That's all hickory self bow, 110 at 28 and 130 at 32. If I can get a good enough draw, hopefully it should be more powerful in any event than the other bow that I just tested. And like I said, it should be more powerful in any event. Even if I didn't get the full draw to 32, get close to 28 or past 28, and I've got at least 110 pounds. So this bow is way more powerful. Let's see what we got here, and hopefully I didn't hit an area I'd already hit. We definitely have a wound on our hog. With this gauge of mail, which could be actually a heavier gauge of mail theoretically, and tighter rings, it was able to, it looks like, cut the ring. It's gone through our layers, and we have our 8 layers. It's gone through an area where I'm trying to see if there's ribs. There are ribs here, but I think it hit right in the lower ribs and maybe on top of one. It's inside our meat. We actually have it inside. And we want to go by the depth, and I'm sorry, that is a good almost 3 inches, between 2.5 to 3 inches. There's no way to be exact here because we're dealing with meat and stuff that I've got to gauge to. So I'd say at least 3 inches because you're going through the meat too as well, and all the material. So I would say about almost 3 inches into the body. Let's go ahead and see if we can undress our hog here. I would love to show the wound, which we already showed it on the inside, but it went through. And like I said, this is mostly, I'd say it's just flesh. There's no actual rib there. It's right below. There's a rib here. It's right behind the rib. So all we went through is thin flesh, the hair, which it seems to cut the hair or the skin, and the meat underneath. And we've got it, like I said, it was about like that into the hog where I'm showing you. So let's go ahead and see if we can pull this through our Akaton or arming jack, and then see what our mail's done. And it cut a ring. This is a solid ring, and the ring has been cut clean through. I don't know if we even need to continue, because if we know a leaf-shaped arrow like this pierced it, I don't think the needle bodkin's even necessary. I would say we are done with our arrow test on the mail for now. This is also very acute. It's a very small head. It's not a big razor head or broad head. And I think that that's basically the kind of results we're going to be getting with a higher pound bow. And possibly we should leave it at this, but I don't know. I may do one more. What do you think, Caddy? One more shot?
Up to you.
I might do one more. Should we use this head or should we use one of the others?
Probably the needle one.
The bodkin?
Needle bodkin.
And after seeing it pierce the male and go through the hog, I'm almost thinking about taking one shot at it without the male.
You might want to do that instead.
You think do that?
Yeah.
Okay. Caddy and I decided on one last test, and it's also because our neighbor Greg Arm, the one who keeps me supplied with all these wonderful hogs to do the Forged in Fire style testing we did with the rare Indian blade, the Costly blade. It's worked wonderfully. We like using them. It's a lot like watching Forged in Fire, but he wanted to see a specific test, and since he requested that, and he keeps us in hogs, so we eat high on the hogs, so to speak, I help him process them. He keeps his freezer full, and mine lots of times. We're going to go ahead and do the test he wanted to see. The most piercing arrow I've got, which is probably the sharp bodkin. As you can see, it's the same, it opens up to about the same size as the shaft. And the most powerful bow, and see if the arrow passes clean through the Texas boar or wild hog. Nothing's going to be wasted. We're going to eat it all. But I'd like to thank Daniel Pearson one more time for these excellent arrows, replicas from Hedibou, and they are medieval arrows spined for powerful bow. So we will go ahead, and they're also high in gram weight too. We've weighed them. Let's go ahead and, so we should have one heck of a penetration. Oh!
Yeah.
We were thinking it would go clean through. Everyone was thinking that. I was as well. It stopped it. I am really in shock. Maybe if I'd used a razor head, we'd have a pass through. This is very unusual. You might want to check this out. I don't know where the head went.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. I wonder if the stopping power actually made it come off.
We might have hit a rib. We hit a bony area here, so I think we hit bone. If we'd hit anything but bone, I don't think it would have gotten stuck this way, but we have it going through right here. The arrow passed through skin like we did in the first arrow hit that we saw earlier. Oh, it hit a bone. It hit the bone here. I think that helps slow it down. See how it hit bone? And since the bone's loose and not in place instead of cutting through it, it pushed it out of the way. And it came through hitting bone again on this side and glanced off the bone, shattering the bone, it feels like, and came out this side. So if we hadn't hit two bones, I think he might have been right and it would have passed through. But hitting two bones, and we lost the tip, so I'm sure the jar to the actual point broke it free from the glue, and that's all we have. So I apologize, Greg, it didn't do what we expected, but that's why it's worth testing to find out. I'd say we move on to some actual longswords.
Yep.
For an Agincourt special, and to honor St. Crispin's Day and Agincourt, as some people call it, Agen instead of Agincourt, we are going to be testing Sean Krieger's blade from Krieger Armory. You can look him up online. We did do a test called The Round from Lee Dowell's Roll recently. You can check that video out. This sword cut wonderfully, because not only is it a good thruster, but it is a cutter. It's very much like the blade designs used during Agincourt. So I figured everybody wants to know how this would fare going into someone wearing an Akiton or an arming jacket with the mail over it, or voiders even under mail. If you were wearing this type gauge metal and this type of solid ring and riveted mail, 10 millimeter, about 17 gauge. Some of it was heavier, some of it was lighter, it just depended. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can half sword and thrust through this. I think it maybe first start coming up, because that's more like what you would do against somebody if you were fighting. You're doing your half swording and you come in to hook or come up under an arm and you get your point in and come on in. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a nice thrust and come up and see if it's possible to actually make it through. See what we got here. Can't tell if it did anything, but that was not a major piercing. I will go ahead and give this another try. We don't want our mail to fall off. This is very difficult. I tried one up, but I think just this rig is not going to work very well that way. It gave way too much. It wouldn't be like pushing against a person if they were fighting with you and you got in there. So I'm going to try coming over and in down into the hip. Ah! Let's see what we got. That definitely went into our hog. We've got it into the hip and through it. We need to check that out real quick.
Yep.
I could perhaps go deeper, but we want to see if we actually cut a ring. Because if we cut a ring, then we could continue to work this into our opponent, causing a much more serious wound. So that's what we got to figure out.
No,
I'd say that went into our hog, but let's see what the ring did.
it didn't cut through it fully.
Didn't cut through it. What it is the size of our rings. If we had smaller rings, this would be much more difficult to go through.
It did score it though.
It did wound him. He would be bleeding through
Yes,
this.
but it did score the actual metal too. If
Most
you paid
certainly.
attention, that ring had a scoring on it afterwards.
True, true. Let's try one more. Try to give it everything, see what we can do, and see if we can make it through there. Ah! And I don't think it did much more. We've got so much give here. It's not like hitting a real person, but we were able to get through far enough to get a wound. So I guarantee you that if it was more tapered, we would get a deeper wound. Not able to go through it, but as also there's some manuals that state you may not be able to go through your opponent that way. So it depends on the male, circumstances, the give on this, and the way it's set up on him. I don't think we're going to be able to get the velocity we need with a thrust from half sorting to go through that. Let's go into some cutting. Okay, now we want to do the forged in fire test, and this is probably the most graphic part, so if anybody doesn't want to see this, be sure and tune out now. But I'm going to do something from like the rasp stance and cut clean through. Yeah. What I expected from a longsword of this quality. Sean Krieger makes some awesome blades. I almost wish I had more time and I would have started with the actual head, because I'm pretty sure we could decap it just as easily. But I would have to say, it will kill. Yes, this will kill. That went clean through the spine, through the meat. I needed to cut it in half anyway because I'll be skinning this, processing it, and putting it on the cooler. Hope you all have enjoyed our tribute to Agincourt. Be sure and check on all the people down below who have made blades in the video, who have made, such as Sean Krieger, who have made the arrows. You can check him out if you ever want to look up Daniel Pearson online. He doesn't normally sell. But Archeybowman, if you check him out on eBay, he will definitely make you a bow if you're interested. He'll even tailor it to you and make it by your standards. I hope you've enjoyed our little Agincourt episode, and you can see why people wore mail armor. No, you cannot cut through mail armor. That's why we didn't even test it with mail, because impossible. You can see I had trouble trying to go through half sorting. But anyway, I hope you all enjoyed our episode. We had a good time here, and as always, farewell. Want, film one more little cut off.
Okay.
I'll take off another piece of them if you want.
That's fine.
How clean was that?
Yep.
I cut too high up so I have no hog left.
I know that. Hurry up.
I could. Are you filming?
It's filming.
Okay.
I'm just working on putting stuff up.
This was not a fluke. This is a razor sharp blade and cuts beautifully. Krieger Armory, or Sean Krieger, makes an excellent blade. Were those good enough cuts? I didn't need a bunch of them, did I? If you'd like to help support the channel, you can always sport a Thane Thran YouTube channel shirt that you can get over at viralstyle.com at the Thane Thran merchandise store. We have coffee mugs, koozies, a wide variety of shirts and hats. You can also help support us on Patreon, and if you do that, you'll also get exclusive content that can only be seen there.